Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie. I'm a life coach, health coach, and a hypnotist at the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life? Well, it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host. And today I have a special guest with me. I will introduce her in just a moment. But if you have any ahas or questions, please leave a comment or a voice message. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. And I will say this lovely lady right here is one of the reasons that I am here in front of you today, because I had been wanting to have a podcast for a very long time. And every time I thought of it, it seemed like, oh my gosh, there's got to be, it's probably this momentous thing that you have to do to create it. I didn't even try. It was like it just seemed big. And so I was on Facebook, and this is Stacey Lauren. And she had on her Facebook, she has a do the thing. And she had started a challenge that was a podcast challenge. And I thought, okay, this is the universe saying, girl, you need to do this. So I started the challenge, and I can say that she made it so simple, because let's just face it, a lot of times what happens is we start, but all we're looking at is at the end, and we feel like we don't know any of the steps that get to that end. And I can only speak for myself. That's when I say, I'll do this another time. And so she made each step and these challenges that she gave us to create and to just start. That was the thing. Just start the thing. And I mean, I am so eternally grateful for you, because this has been, I almost feel like it's my baby. And I had one coach that I'll tell you, a business coach, that told me I needed to let that go so that I could focus on my coaching business. And I said, well, wait a minute now. I feel like this is part of my self-care, because I love to talk and I love to find different interviews, different people that I can share their story. And so it's my self-care. Did you ever think somebody would tell you that you help them make their self-care?
I love that.
So go ahead and tell us how you started.
Yeah, I have to just say first, I love the way that you worded that, because I feel like it is this like really intimate moment that you get to have with someone, and this genuine connection that you sometimes can't even get in the real world, right? Because you're able to like have this time and space of intention of a conversation and talk about the thing that you love and the thing they love. So it creates this like really magical space for both of you.
Yeah. So my coach just had to say, okay.
That's so good. So how I
Yes.
started was I had just exited my business. I owned a staffing company for 20 years, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? I just had like 20 years of my life, like sucked into this thing, like 100%, right? Constantly on my phone, having to manage things and people and all of this stuff. And then I just had decided that I was going to write a book. And so I started the process of writing the book, and I talked to a book strategist, and the book strategist was like kind of getting at my deeper passion for like what got me to be interested. So originally I was going to do a sales book. And then, because I love sales is my background. I've done door-to-door sales. I've done business-to-business sales with my staffing company. We did sales, and that's how I was able to do a lot of things, because I understood that mindset of law of averages and rejection and setting goals. And then I was also, as the process that I was writing the book, I started dating. And I realized that those skills that I learned during sales applied to dating, like dealing with rejection, being positive, setting goals, not like getting sucked into something without making a change. And so that's when I was like, in my mastermind, I'm in a business mastermind. And all of a sudden I'm like, I just want to teach people to do the thing. And it came out and I listened to the recording and I'm like, do the thing. That's what I want my book to be. So it went from a sales book to do the thing in that moment. And then I texted the book strategist and she was like talking to me about how I've done the thing. And at the time, like, she's like, I need your, the hero's story, your hero's journey. She's like, I need all the bad stuff when you didn't do the thing. When did things not go right? And at the time, like, I couldn't remember any of that stuff, and
And
it
we
just, I
blocked
couldn't.
that shit out, right?
Exactly. I couldn't tap in. I only remembered the good parts of me doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, you know what? You're going to have to interview people then. If in order for this to be a good book, you have to interview other people to find out how they did the thing and at least find out where they struggled. And so that's when I'm like, well, if I'm going to interview people, I might as well start a podcast. Not even start a podcast, but record their conversation. So in case I ever wanted to use it for a podcast, I could. And then that's when pretty much it started. I met the founder of the podcast platform that I was on, Adam. We talked about him a lot, and that he helped me break through some of my thinking about podcasting in general. And then from the podcast was then when I dissected a formula for how people do the thing, because I got to interview people over and over again. I started to see these common patterns and then found a formula. And then I wanted to test the formula into a challenge. And so that's when pretty much the do the thing challenges were born, was through me dissecting the formula and then wanting to test it. And so that's kind of where I am now, is I'm just having so much fun basically running these challenges and helping people do the things they want, whether it's dating or starting a podcast or going live or finding their voice, starting a book. I've done all these different challenges to help people. And I have many more kind of exciting things kind of in the works too.
Yeah. Well, so when did you start? Because I've seen you're doing the street interviews. Did you do that before the podcast, or was that part of the podcast?
No, that's so funny that you just asked that, because I was already doing the podcast. And then so during the dating challenge, Adam, the founder of the podcast platform, he was an expert on the panel for the challenge. And he had given a dare to the challenge participants to start their own podcast. That was his dare. He's like, oh, that's a great way to date, right? Is to go up to someone and say, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? And so I gave that as a bonus dare during my first challenge. And they had said, no way, like there's no way. That was like too far outside of their comfort zone. So I dropped it and I let it go until I did my second dating challenge. Someone had listened to that episode and they were like, hey, I'm interested. I want to start a podcast. And so that's when I decided to get people together and like kind of help people start podcasts. And then I decided to create a whole challenge for it. This is not the one you were in, because what happened was I was like kind of obsessed with the idea of everyone doing the start a podcast challenge so much that I'm talking to my dating community about it and they wouldn't come. Like the podcast, like the name podcast was like too much like outside of their comfort zone to do it. And I'm on this trip with my daughter. We're in Europe and I don't even know what happened, but we started doing street interviews. I think I just wanted to start talking to people, about how they do the thing. And it was, oh, I remember now. Sorry. This is how I love this, Vickie, because this is how it works, right? Like you don't remember things and then you start speaking things out loud and it's like, oh no, this is how it works.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to sound all over the place because at the same time, I'm also working on a quiz. I'm like working on this quiz, which you'll see at some point. I'm still working on it, but it's like, what is stopping you from doing the thing? And then that was when I was trying to decide. A lot of people don't understand what doing the thing is unless you explain it. And so I then tested the question out on different people on the street without recording. I was like, hey, if I asked you the question, what's stopping you from doing the thing? Would that make sense? And they're like, what's the thing? And then I then changed it to what's stopping you from doing the thing you want. And then that worked. And so then I was like, oh, it'd be cool to just talk to people on the street like that and record. And so that's what happened. I'm in Europe. And that's when I told my daughter my idea. And she was like, yeah, sure. So we're interviewing people on the street, in front of the Eiffel Tower. And we go to London and go to Trafalgar Square, like all these different places. And it was like really fun. We ended up going to New York and we did it there too. But going back to the podcast challenge, this is when I was still scheduled to start the podcast challenge. It was in January. Because I think the one you did was in April,
I
right?
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be, it was already set. All the assets were done. Everything's ready. And then, but I felt like a yearning for the single people, to like be able to get the growth that I get from the podcast. And then all of a sudden I realized through the street interviews that it wasn't about the podcast. It was about finding their voice. And so I told the people that were helping me with the challenge, I can't do this podcast challenge right now. I have to be able to help the other people that want to, that the word podcast is like throwing them off. And I want to help people find their voice. And so by me doing the Find Your Voice challenge instead in January and then postponing the podcast challenge to April, I learned a lot. And I think that's why the challenge was so good, because I learned how to help people find their voice, and then eventually start a podcast. So it was like this mixture of the two, which was really exciting. It was almost like by me wanting to help people that weren't ready yet, it got me to tap in deeper into what I wanted to do, which then helped so many more people in the end.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I got a question for you. Going back to when you were working your business that you had. So
Yeah.
while you were doing that, did you almost do the same kind of thing with the people that you worked with?
Well, so that's a great question. I felt kind of stifled in a way, like even though I was the CEO of this business, co-owner, the whole thing, but it was like kind of stifling because they worked for our company, and while I did help some people start their own businesses, like I would encourage them to not be stuck working for a company, so there were several people that started their own companies. One guy, I did a podcast interview with him. It was great. He has a really booming t-shirt business. Another woman started a surf instructor school, and there's a few other people. I was able to do that, but the majority of people, they were like kind of stuck working for our company. And there was only so much I could do with jobs,
Right.
and so I did in a way, but I also had the opposite effect where I would also see these patterns that would get in their way of like why they didn't want to take the promotion. And I think this is where the inspiration of the original book, the sales book, came from, because some people would say they wanted to make more money. And then I would say, oh, just do the sales job. You can make more money doing a sales job because then you can get paid commission. And they're like, oh, I could never do sales. That's just not what I do. And it's because they like had such a closed mind. They couldn't get past the idea that sales is not sales.
Right.
It's just like consulting with someone and finding out how you can help them, and then showing them how the thing you have helps them overcome the thing that they need, and so it had to break down the wall of what selling was. And then obviously
don't you think that that's kind of what happens to us in everything? We have these walls built up from our perception of what something is. So they've probably had so many sleazy salesmen, because they are out there, that came up to them and made them tried to make them feel guilty, and maybe they bit into that and ended up spending money that they didn't have to spend, and all those things. So in their mind, the person that they don't want to be is that, and so they don't see how they can be separate from that. Do you think
Oh,
that's
100%. Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I love sales, but I can't even be around the skincare people when they're like passing out the samples, because they like pull you in so good. And then they like are so good at the manipulation. No, I'm saying this for everyone, just so it is. But the ones that I've run into, I can't even stop, But then on the other side, I get annoyed at the people when I stop at the real estate, because they have the signs and they like show the money amounts that the houses are. And if they don't ask for my number, I'm like, why did they ask for my number? Like I am an investor in real estate. Like I could like buy your property. And it's just funny having that like sales mindset, how I do, like, I love being sold, but I don't like being sold in a manipulative way. And so I agree though, they'll make a story about it and generalize, which is actually what I pretty much have been talking about in the singles group. With one of the dares was, what are the superficial boxes like that you can release during the challenge? Because so many people, they put up these walls because like they had this experience before. So then they'll like stereotype everything based on that one thing that happened to them. And they will make judgments based on that. And I think it's really similar to what you're saying with what happens with someone having a bad sales experience. They'll generalize it with everyone is a bad, like this must mean everyone is not good if they're a salesperson.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely get that. And so it's funny to me, I didn't do the singles challenge with you when you as you were doing it this time. And part of it's because I had so many things on my plate that it was like, okay, I've got to make myself, you know, stick to these things and quit branching out so much that I feel like I'm scattered, So
Yes.
because I'm one of those people, I don't know if you're this way or not, but it's like the shiny
Shiny
object
penny.
syndrome kind of thing. It's like I want to learn and I want to be and do so much that if somebody even mentions, there's this challenge, this workshop coming up, and it's something that I would love to do or learn, it's like I'll pop, oh yeah, I'll do it. And then before you know it, I have no time left for anything. And so I've really had to rein it in a little bit with that. So I definitely think, now I'm not promising, but I definitely think that I'll do one in the future, because I've been single. I'll just share. I've been single for, let's see, my daughter is 26 years that it's been since I got divorced.
Mm.
And he and I were divorced for like 3 years. And then we decided that we were going to reconnect, and we were
Mm.
dating and trying to work things out. And then he passed away of a massive heart attack.
Mm.
So then I felt guilty if, because the only reason we didn't get married again was because I kept saying, we're the same people. We can't do this to the kids a second time. We've got to work through our stuff before we do
Mhm.
this. Because when we're not married, we get along great. But put us married and having to deal with everything, not so much. And so then I had this guilt thing for several years. And, and I did date a lot, but it was like I have got some stories to tell you. I'm telling you, some of my salon clients loved when I was dating a lot, especially when I was doing the online dating and everything, because every time they came in, I had another story about some experience that I had had doing this dating thing. And so once I got where I decided right then, it was like, I'm not even going to date at all right now. I just want to be me, do the things that I want to do. And I've been doing
Yeah.
that for several years now. And so then I get to the place where I'm so happy with me and my time and doing the thing that I want to do. And I've been by myself, as far as single, for a very long time now. And so it almost seems impossible to make a space for someone else. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things I really try to help people with, like during the challenge. It's like we have this perception of, with this kind of talks goes back to what you're saying about sales. We have this perception of even what a relationship needs to look like,
Mm-hmm.
and there really is no box kind of relationship. You can make it anyone that you want. So it is also true that you could be in a relationship and maybe only see the person, 2 days a week or 1 day a week or one day a month or whatever it is, as long as it's something you guys agree on and there's good communication there. And then
Mm-hmm.
who knows, it could evolve from there versus that outcome of immediate, like, okay, this must be true, so I can't do that. And so that's
Right.
just something that we kind of work on in the dating challenge. And it's really fun because it's like so easy to like make these like bold the black and white statements, right? Because we're building up this protection of like, my time is so important. And I get that, but when
Yeah.
you can expand it a little, at least be open, it sort of like just opens the universe to do what it wants to do with you,
Right. And I guess some of my issue comes from the last gentleman I dated was a great guy, but he wanted, and I know that but kind of negates what I just said, but and I guess it's and he wanted all of my time. It was like he wanted, to, even if you were in the, like, I'd go to his house and we'd be in the house together, but he wanted me right there, beside him. He wanted me to meet him for lunch. I mean, it was like I had very little time for me. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I would say, well, I need to get home. Well, I'll go with you. No, I need my time. And it was, that's the kind of thing. So it really put me into this space of even valuing my time even more than I did before.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. I know I'll do the challenge eventually and I'll work through it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think I don't want to, and I know we're talking way too much about this one challenge, but
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's that I don't want to feel like I'm going for a relationship because something's missing in my life when there's not,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so that's another little preconceived notion that I have in my head too, another little block. And I think that comes from, for many years, I didn't want my own time. I wanted somebody, and I was just like that guy that I dated, where I wanted all of their time. And if they didn't call me every friggin' day, I thought, oh my God,
Yeah.
what is the matter? So I've changed over the years and what I want and all. And so I guess the thing that I really, if I were to get in another relationship, it would have to be someone who is very comfortable with who they are. They are okay with, sharing things together, but also having your separate time that you can do things and still feel like there's a connection, and that it's not somebody is doing something else because they don't want to spend time with you.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that last guy gave you such a gift because you got to see that you are 100% full and you
Yeah.
do value your time and you value yourself. And that's actually kind of like the point of where I like to get people, is like to that point where you don't need anyone in your life to make you feel whole. You already feel whole and you're already abundant in like what you're doing. But then when you get to do these things without someone being with you, you're just doing them anyway, regardless. You don't need someone to like go see a concert. You can go by yourself. And
Right.
then you could invite someone if you want to. And so that's the idea, is like that person just like levels you up. It's or like kind of adds to that level. But like that's my whole thing I teach, is like when a lot of people come in, they're like they've got holes in their bucket, right? And so like no matter what you put in, those holes, the water will keep coming out, and so that's why one of the things is self-love every day, and like always saying what you like about yourself, and regardless of the dares I give them. And just for anyone listening, that's kind of how the challenges run. I forgot to mention that I give dares to the people that are in them, and that gets them to make these like micro steps to give them the changes that they want. But anyway, and then once the bucket holes are filled, then everything that comes on top is basically then already up there, because when you meet someone,
Right.
you don't want to meet someone when you're down here. You want to
Right.
meet them when
That's the
you're
kind
up
of person
higher.
you'll attract too, is
Exactly. Yeah.
someone that is either exactly where you are or likes to manipulate people exactly where
Yeah.
you are, because
Yeah.
there's two of them there that gravitate towards someone who's very needy. And the thing that this gentleman really taught me was how clingy I was in previous relationships,
Mm-hmm.
that how they even put up with me, I do not know. And so it was kind of like, that's why that relationship didn't pan out. It was very
Totally.
eye-opening to see it from the other side,
Yeah.
because that
He really
was
helped
me many
you.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, he really helped you learn about yourself. And so that's
Yeah.
something we do too. We like kind of go through like learning your attachment style. So then you kind of learn what your triggers are. So when you
Mm-hmm.
are triggered, you're not saying like, what's wrong with me? You actually know, oh, this is my anxious, because I'm an
Yeah.
anxious attachment. And so when my anxious is activated, instead of me wondering what's happening, I'm able to like look and go, oh, okay, I need to do this now to make myself feel comfortable, not waiting for someone else to do something for me.
Right.
So
And I think I can't remember if it's John Gray or whoever the hell it is that has the book. And one of the things he says in it is that your picker's broke.
oh,
So he says it's kind of like you have the target and your arrow, and you're focused on the bullseye, but you end up going a little to the left, and so that lets you know that you need to move a little to the right, and then you may move way too far to the right. And if that
yeah.
happens a lot, it means your picker's broke. And so it's redefining who you are and what you're looking for to be able to hone in on the right relationships, I guess is the way it is. But I haven't read the
Yeah.
book in forever ago, so I'm really not even sure if it's men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or what the book is.
Yeah.
And that is one of my things, is I read so many books and over the years, And it's like, I can't remember. I have all these little tidbits of information that are in my head, and I'll spout them off and say, I don't know what book it was in, but I swear, I promise it was there.
Well, yeah, and technically you're taking your version of it, so now it's yours pretty
Yeah,
much, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're claiming it. So yeah, I love that. And back to what you were saying earlier about the shiny penny thing, like I've
Mhm.
had that a lot where I'm like, I love grabbing at like a bunch of different things, especially in the beginning of Do the Thing, because I was still exploring what I wanted, and so now though I have clarity, and so now I've been like deliberately slowing down. Like I just postponed a challenge, because I'm like, okay, I need more time to focus on this one thing before I go
Mhm.
start another thing, and so now and the community is great, and you guys all like get it, when that happens, but I have so much clarity now. So I'm having to do what you do now and like, go, okay, no, I can't do this other thing
Yeah.
because I need to focus on this. And it's been really cool to also have the clarity to not have the shiny penny thing. So I think it's great that you mentioned that you're able to say no to things and have that self-control, because it is so easy to want to do
It
everything,
is.
especially when you're excited about it.
Yes, and I'm sure you're probably like me. I get bombarded with emails and messages all the time about these different things that you're invited to do. And I will say that um, just recently I had signed on with a new business coach. And once I signed on with the business coach, all of a sudden I had signed up for two challenges that ended up being at the exact same
Oh.
time. One of them I got part of the way through, and I ended up saying, I think my time is better suited over here, so I'm going to let that one go. And I'll tell you, that was one of the hardest things I did. And
Mm.
because and I've shared with this with someone, I don't even know if it was in a group I was in or on a podcast, I don't even remember. But when I divorced my first husband, I was in college when we met, and I quit college to get married. And then I started art school. I started going to college again. I did a lot of different things, but none of them did I finish. It was like something would happen and I would walk away from it. And so the one thing that he said when we went to court that never left me was that I don't finish anything. And this was my first husband, so over 35 years ago.
Mm.
And when it came time to decide that I'm going to not finish this program, the first thing I thought is, oh my God, she's going to think I'm such a flake. She's going to think, these things about me that he
Mm-hmm.
said were true. And then I thought, well, she don't know what the hell he said. And there's a whole bunch of
Yeah.
people in the group. And it is normal in a group setting that periodically people go away. And so I thought, am I doing something so that I don't have her say something bad about me? Or is it I'm afraid I'm going to hurt her feelings? And then whose feelings am I hurting? Mine, because I'm stretched too far. And so I was able to take that moment and kind of go through it a little bit, and which is something that I help my clients with, but it's like I say all the time, it's easy to help someone else because when we're in it, we can't see our own shit. It's like we experience things, but on the inside we're not seeing it completely. And so that's one of the things that I was really glad that I was able to do that.
There's so much in what you just said that I love. I just like, so the one thing, one thing is, I think it's also, I'm in another coaching program where the guy talks a lot about how to manage anger and how to have good communication with your family. But I also see that he has like an angry side. And so the only reason why he's able to coach on the anger and how to manage anger is because he deals with it constantly and he's having to fight himself. And then for me, like I have managed like depression and like sometimes it's hard. I'm like literally it's like painful for me to get off my couch. Like if I'm in a slug kind of mood is what I call it, and I have to like force myself. Like I do a lot of stuff. I do improv, I do comedy, I do the street interviews, I do podcasts, but sometimes like I don't want to do anything, but then I force myself to get out. But it's because and I have social anxiety a little, like with groups, I'm an introvert. And so but that's why I'm able to help people
Mm-hmm.
because I'm constantly fighting that. And so I know how it takes for me. And I know it's always good on the outside. It's just like if you don't want to work out and then you work out, you feel better. It's the same thing. If I don't want to go to improv and then I go to improv, I'm great. But it's like, it's so painful to get up, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so, but it's because I have that experience and that feeling. That's why I'm able to help people because I get it. I like literally can see in their mind because it's me, you know?
Right.
I've just tapped into how you can do it. Whereas most people then will get paralyzed and not
Mm-hmm.
do it, you know? And so
Right.
it's just that fine line of like, this is how you actually take that leap. And so anyway, pointing out is like the fact that you do struggle with some of that stuff. It's because that's how you're able to help everyone because you've gone through it too, you know?
Yeah.
And
True.
that's what I
True.
talk about a lot with that lived experience. That's how we have this lived experience and that's our certificate
Yes.
because we've
Yes.
like gotten to the other side of it.
Yeah. So where do you see, I know you've got a challenge coming up, or maybe you've, because I think you might have postponed it. Um, the, um,
Oh, the
the,
party one.
yes.
Yeah. So, oh, and there was one more thing I wanted to say. Do you mind
Okay.
about
Go ahead.
the other thing you said that I just remembered as you were asking me this? I also really speak a lot to not doing the thing is doing the thing. Because by doing what you said, where like it's so easy to do something because you're scared of disappointing someone, or because you think that's what they expect of you, or because you're scared to not do it. And to actually not do the thing to me is also doing the thing. So that's why I interview people who have quit jobs after being there for 20 years, you know, or
Mm-hmm.
they've like exited a business or they've made a decision not to do something because I think a lot of people will get stuck or stay in a bad relationship. You know, they'll get
Yes.
stuck
Yes.
in that thing because they're scared of what's on the other side. And so those are also people that I like to help because I think that's a huge thing when you can stop something that and just because then you have that opportunity cost that you're going to get for whatever that new thing is that you're
Right.
going to do.
And, when you're saying that, it makes me think one of the, people staying in jobs or staying in relationships and that kind of thing. One of the phrases I heard, I'm raised in the South, so this may only be a Southern phrase. I do not know, but that I used to hear all the time, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, and I had the impression for many, many years because of that, is no matter how uncomfortable something was, it was really hard to change because what if you changed and then realized that one was the good one?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So isn't that a kind of a very damaging phrase, but I've heard it my
Yes.
whole life. Is it a
Yeah.
Southern thing?
I think it is, but
Okay.
I know the without the saying, I know exactly what you're saying. You know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
happens to people a lot for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So it's amazing. That's one of the things that I talk with people too about is why we believe a lot of the things we believe. What was the thing that you were told, when you were young? And I'll just share this, and this is probably something that you've probably heard before, but I share it a lot to emphasize this thing of why we do certain things or what we believe. And there was a woman who at her Thanksgiving dinner, it was the first time she was going to be preparing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she knew how her mother prepared it every year. And so she knew that they took the ham and they cut it in half and they put it in two separate pans. And so she was thinking about it and she thought, well, let me just ask mom, why in the world does she do it that way? So she called her mom and her mom said, well, I really don't know. That's the way grandma did it. And so they go and they talk to grandma and come to find out the only reason that happened and they had been doing it for all this time is because when she first got married and did her first Thanksgiving, she only had a pan big enough to hold half the ham. So she cut it in half and that's the way she prepared it. So everybody had been following
Yeah.
suit, the whole family, for year after year after year, and the only started because she didn't have a pan big enough. And so I always ask people, so where in your life are you following something that you think is fact and it's a truth? And this is just the way people do it, because I've heard that many, many times. And maybe it's simple as they didn't have a pan big enough to hold the ham and they cut it in half.
Wow. You know, it's so true because like so many of us live on autopilot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just going through the motions of life and having the same thing over and over again. And then until something drastic happens, I mean, there's the feather, there's the brick, and then there's the semi truck. But for the most part, you need the semi truck for something to change,
Right. Right.
divorced, widowed, um, death, like there's something that happens. And then that's when you finally can get off autopilot. But wouldn't it be great if you don't need to have that
Right.
semi truck and you
You
could
could do
get
it
just
just because
direct
you wanted to,
just
not
because you
because
want
some
to?
catastrophe has happened and made you. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
And so that kind of brings us back to your question before, which is, so what I'm really working on now is I have a Find Your Voice challenge, that the one that I did in January, which will kind of happen by accident, because I was going to do the podcast challenge. And that's when I realized, no, I could just have them find their voice first, because that way I could
Mm-hmm.
get the singles people that weren't wanting to start a podcast. And so I had decided to monetize Do the Thing. I think it's been like 4 months ago. And because I was actually, when I exited my business, I was writing the book, the podcast came, the community came, but everything's really just been research for my book. So everything was free essentially. And so it was just me learning, understanding what got people to move, how to get them to make the changes they wanted. And then at the same time, I'm exploring other businesses on the side. Like I started this e-commerce brand. It's called Kitchen Pixie. It is out there and it's kind of
It's
going
called what?
Kitchen Pixie.
What is that?
It's like I have a baking, like it's for empty nesters. It's like a baking dishes that go into an oven, but they're smaller. So
Oh, okay. So like
it's
a
better.
one
Yeah, one,
person or two person
yeah.
thing.
But
Okay.
my exciting product, you'll hear more about it. I'm doing these like really cool sprays that you'll be able to either wipe your counters with, and it has this like luxurious smell that kind of just brightens your day, gives you the magic in the kitchen, or you could use it as air freshener, or you could even spray it on yourself for perfume. But anyway, so I'm working on that. But so I have this kitchen brand, and I was also exploring other things like an alcohol brand. What else was I exploring? Retreats, like all these different things. And I'm still doing the podcast because, like you said, that was my self care. I just didn't put it that way until you said it. That was my fun. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
just playing with the podcast. I'm playing with the challenges, and the book was my thing that I was like working on. But I wasn't thinking of monetizing it. I had those other businesses as my like thing. And then all of a sudden, I realized, wait a minute, Do the Thing is like everything. It's like I could do retreats, I could do the alcohol. The thing with the alcohol was really the connection point. It wasn't like, it wasn't about the alcohol, it was about doing these icebreaker cards and getting people connected. And so I was dating too. I wanted to do a dating app. So anyway, it's all this stuff that I've been like wanting, and I realized it all umbrellaed under Do the Thing. So anyway, so my first thing I monetized was I decided after the Start a Podcast challenge, there were so many people that wanted to start podcasts, but they just like felt behind in the challenge. So they never started. And so I'm like, great, let me just create a quick little product. I'll do a 1-day intensive, $200, and help people that wanted to start podcasts that couldn't participate in the challenge do that. And I did that. It was so fun. We had like 8 people come, a few people that had participated in the podcast challenge, but they got in their way, and had
Mm-hmm.
like the imposter syndrome and the perfection. And so the intensive helped them break through that. And then some other people that hadn't even been exposed to Do the Thing, they started their podcast. So that was like really exciting. And then I just realized like I wanted to be able to like do something that could help more people. So that's when I decided to switch Find Your Voice to an on-demand challenge. And I just launched it actually yesterday to the singles group in a
Okay.
celebration thing. And so pretty much that's my first like not legitimate because the podcast one was a product, but that was more of a live thing. The Find Your Voice is like on demand. And so we're doing the first challenge for that September 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Which is my birthday, by the way.
oh,
Anybody
that's
that's interested.
I will never forget your birthday because that's my daughter's birthday too.
Okay. All
So
right. Good. Yeah. She must be a wonderful human.
she is amazing. She's
Yeah.
incredible. And so yeah, so I'm doing that. And then yeah, it's exciting because it's 17 days. And I just did a beta before I launched it. I did a beta with 20 people and it went just as good as the live challenge. And so it's just going to be extraordinary. And it's such an amazing way. This goes back to what you were saying, to tap into your own desires and what you want, and to like be able to really reflect on like your own, like without living on autopilot. That's exactly,
Right.
I put that in a slide actually, is stop living on autopilot, stop people pleasing, and that's what Find Your Voice does. It gets you to finally focus on like your own needs. And the other thing it does is it gets you to learn how to even express your emotions, you know, like from what's coming inside of you. I used to be one of those people, actually, speaking of my daughter, she used to say, the one thing she didn't like about me was I was too positive. And at the time, I kind of laughed about it, right? But what I didn't realize what she meant was, through therapy and stuff, I realized what she meant was I would say like one thing, like I'd be positive, but I wasn't right. Like it was like through the divorce with her dad, and like I was unhappy, but I'm like saying everything's great, you know? Because she never heard the fighting or anything, but it was like me saying opposite of what I was feeling. So my feelings were incongruent, you know, with like,
Right.
or aligned.
And people can
And so
tell
and
usually.
she could tell. So then she's thinking she's crazy, you know, because she's like, I'm feeling like something's off, but you're not telling me anything's off, you know? And so anyway, and I was just kind of like that. I never was negative. I wouldn't say anything bad. I would always think of the positive, you know? And while I am a very positive person, I've learned now to process my emotions. And so I teach this through the Find Your Voice Challenge, through a dare that I have people do. And it helps you process your emotions, so you could feel them before you move on. And so anyway, it's a really extraordinary challenge, and I'm really excited about it. And that's happening. And then I have the party challenge. I decided to postpone it. That's a 2-hour cocktail party, which is really fun. And that's going to be September, I think it's 23rd or something like that. And then I postponed the bucket list challenge, which I'm also really excited about, but I actually decided to postpone that till January. I was originally going to do that in October. And so it's good because it gives me more time and space, because I do want to figure out my best way to monetize. But I have to, when I monetize it, I want to make sure it's coming from like me. Like, I don't want it to be like, I had that staffing company. I always had to focus on like money and revenue and profit. And like, I don't want to do that with Do the Thing. This is more my playground to like have fun and really get to help people and impact in a way that's not about the money. And so that's what I'm making sure. I have to be really aligned. It has to feel really good for me to want to do it, if that makes sense. So that's been really kind of important for me.
Well, just to put a bug in your ear, I never was able to take advantage of your write a book challenge.
Oh,
And so since the podcast challenge has been so good for me, I have about 5 or 6 different notebooks with books in them.
yeah.
That, where I start and then I lose interest, I go away and then I come back. And then I always have in the back of my mind, I'll be in doing something and I'll think, ooh, that would be a great book. And I even told one of my podcast guests that I was thinking maybe I'd write a book about all my podcast guests. I mean, there's so many different ideas that come, and then so
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Because Anne Marie in the group, she mentioned that too on the 200th celebration. She was like, I'm interested in that. So you know how when you hear something, I have to really listen. And then the other thing that comes to mind from that is the company that's helping me with my book. Because remember, this all started from the book, and the book's not out yet. And so the company that was helping me, they actually dissolved or they get bought out or something. So the author contracts are now dissipated, which is like really annoying. And so now I'm figuring out how I'm going to do the book. So what I decided, though, that's my Do the Thing formula book, which really shows the formula.
Can you hear the thunder? There's a storm happening. Oh, okay.
I
all
don't
right,
know.
good.
That's what's great about all this stuff this tech stuff. But yeah, so the book is the Do the Thing formula book, which that's like a real deal like book. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like figure that out, and that's separate. But like, I have a podcast with 200 episodes on it. I'm gonna pull out people's biggest piece of advice on doing the thing, and then basically aggregate that into a book. And then I'm just going to put that book out, So I'm in the process of figuring that out right now. And so this will be timed, I think, with me doing it. And then I think you're right. Like, it's really great, especially for the people that started podcasts, because it's such an easy way to just pull the content from these interviews that you're having. And then you're honoring the people that you've interviewed by having them be featured in a book,
Right. And one of the reasons I was thinking about that is because as a coach, I was asked to be part of a book with other coaches. And so we each wrote a part of our story in a chapter. So I had a chapter in this book. And the same thing happened with that company, is that the publishing company kind of went out. So the only books that you can get are the ones that I have left, because they're, it's not out there anymore. So I have about 10 books left, then I was selling them and everything. And so for some reason now I'm just kind of hanging on to those 5 books. And so I was really thinking that maybe at some point I would give them as gifts to people that become coaching clients or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that as I was doing these podcasts and I was hearing these amazing stories, and some of the people have written books, but a lot of them have not.
Yeah.
And so it's like being able to share a little bit of their story in this book, and like I said, it just blurted it out on one of my podcasts, and I thought, where the hell did that come from?
Isn't that great? That's what I love about a podcast is like you're talking, kind of like what happened earlier. I forgot where those connection dots, happen. And while someone listening might be like, oh my God, like it's like it provided a lot of clarity for me.
I do that all the time when I'm telling a story too. I'll say, wait a minute, no, let me back up.
Well, and it's real, right?
Yeah,
I think I think to me, it shows people like anyone can really, like, we can all do this. And it's just having this like fun conversation. And then you get to learn something. And like now all of a sudden I'm remembering, oh, that's actually how the street interview started. I forgot about that. It's kind of cool. But if we weren't talking out loud, then we wouldn't know that's true,
Yeah, see, I think one of the reasons I enjoy the podcast so much is because, and I've heard a lot of them, and some people are a lot more polished and they actually have interview questions and everything. And I've been a guest on podcasts before where they sent me the questions ahead of time so that I would know what they were going to ask and have it all ready and everything. But I even tell people, because a lot of times, especially if it's somebody I don't know much about, I will have like a little pre-interview with them so we can kind of get our story straight as far as what we expect from each other. And I'll tell them, as they start telling me the story, now don't tell me too much, because I want to be able to ask questions in the moment, because I'm wanting to discover at the same time that everybody else is discovering.
Ooh.
And so that feels good to me.
I love the way you just said that. I want to discover while everyone else is discovering, because that's so new, right? And that's how the curiosity is able to help you kind of lead into that synergy that you end up having with the guest. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. So it's definitely fun. So other than, I know you've got so many irons in the fire still, and you've got some challenges coming up. And so what do you feel, have you got a projected thing that you want this to become?
Yeah, it's not clear yet, so I'm not doing it yet, but maybe, I don't know if membership's the right word, but some kind of monthly thing where people will pay and they get access, because I have a lot of experts, that I have access to. And now, like, I mean, with you, right? Like you and so many of the people, Madeline in the group and the community, Anne Marie, Nikki Kush, like there's so many community members, like being able to highlight people and have them have their voice heard too in this membership, like with all these rising, like the people that like have these amazing businesses, coaching opportunities, leadership. It's like there's just so much. I keep telling people, like it's just this like space that created that brings, it's all about the people though in the community, that is what elevates it to where it is. So the membership would be something where it's like all of us being able to like, speak. So anyway, there's something there. I just don't have it clear. Although I do have an idea of, because the challenges, they're not sustainable, like to have as many as I do. I think like 2 a year is more appropriate, so that you don't get burnt out, on it, like me either,
Right.
but also the person. So I think like kind of lessening the challenges, but then maybe doing like a dare a week. So then people can still like expand their comfort zone that way, and then maybe doing some kind of like Zoom. So there's a few ideas that I have, but then my long-term idea, since I'm saying it out loud, I might as well go here with you.
Go for it.
I want to help people get financial freedom. And I don't know what way that is yet, but like it's liberating when you no longer have to burn your mental energy on how you're going to like pay your bills. So I want people to be able to do that, but I can't just be there. I have to help them with the confidence first. Through these micro steps of change. Right. And then it's over time, it compounds. So then it's like, oh, okay, I just started my podcast. Well, now why don't I just start my business? Now, why don't I just this? Right. And even for me, like this was the first time. Well, I think with the podcast challenge, I sold the podcast intensive. but no one bought that day, like when I sold, because I didn't do it in a way like it was like really soft, and so and it was the emails after was how they ended up buying it, with this one that I did yesterday. Like a bunch of people bought the Find Your Voice, but I had to and I didn't sell it, like it wasn't, that's what I didn't want it to be slimy. I wanted it to be real and I wanted it to feel good, but I had to overcome a lot to be able to even do that, because I had with the podcast one, when I did that, it was like just a one little thing. Come join us, with the Find Your Voice. It had 6 slides, and you'll see if you're on tomorrow. I'm going to do it in the challenge group too, a little bit differently, but I had 6 slides, selling it, but it's in a way that was real. It wasn't showing this is literally what people have said, it's I found out who I was and discovered what I want from my life. And, and so it was that's what I had to get over, was that feeling. Even though I love sales, I'm not a salesperson, if that makes sense. I love, I'm okay getting rejected. I'm not a hard closer. I'm not any of those things, but I've never sold the way that I'm doing it now, where it's you just speak it and then people are doing it that way. So anyway, yesterday was a big deal for me to overcome that. And then people actually got it. They bought it, and it was really exciting. But anyway, point being, financial freedom. And the way to do that is for me to get over my hangups of my own mindset stuff that comes up when it does, as I start to learn that I want to do new things. And then I'm going to be able to help people do it too.
Right. Well, what came to mind as you were saying all of that is, I told you I'd gotten a new business coach, and he was asking me, so what are you doing to promote yourself? Because I'm a health coach, a life coach, and a hypnotherapist, and and I'm a hairstylist too. So I got a lot of things that I'm doing, and so as I was telling him all about it, he said, he said, let me stop you. He said, so have you ever been on a long trip on the interstate and there is nothing around, and all of a sudden you see this billboard as your stomach is beginning to growl, and it says, turn here, 5 miles down is this restaurant. The only one you're going to see for the next 10 miles. And so you get off the interstate, you go to this restaurant that's 5 miles out. He said, what you have right now is you have the restaurant that is 5 miles out and no billboard. So nobody knows you're there. Nobody knows that, oh, this is exactly what I need. My stomach's growling. This is what I want. He said, nobody knows that. And he said, so you're the best kept secret as long as you do your business that way. And I thought, holy shit, he put it into such perspective that I was just blown away with the whole thing. And so, it's now getting to the place where I'm learning all these different things so that I can be out there and let people know that this is what I do, so that I can help people. And I'll just share really quick, not to be morbid or anything, this gentleman that is the amazing coach. I was 3 weeks into the program of a 12-week program. He passed away just this past week.
Oh my gosh.
And it was all of a sudden I was thrown for a loop, because it's I finally had this person that was speaking to me in a way that I could get what he was saying. And he was filling in the gaps of what I need. And I think, and this is some of the things that you do. So I'm going to share this metaphor real quick. It's not really a metaphor. It's a story of something that happened to me. But I had this lawnmower. It's a manual lawnmower, and I couldn't get it to work. I moved into a new house, couldn't get my lawnmower to work. So I'm Googling all these different things, and come to find out, it seems like it's going to be the spark plug. So I can't even find the spark plug on this stupid lawnmower. So I watched some more videos to find the spark plug. So I finally found a video where the guy opens up this case where it was hidden in there. And then he talks about it, make sure you get all the right numbers, you get, he's telling you all these things. And then he shows himself holding the spark plug, but he does not show you how to get the spark plug out of the lawnmower and into your hand. I watched several videos, never could find one that it went from there to here. That's it. So I ended up having to get my neighbor to come over, and come to find out I needed a special tool to even get it out. So it wouldn't you could turn it, and I knew it wasn't working. So I had to go buy the special tool. And what I'm getting at is this gentleman, his name's James. he helped me to see exactly what to do. So it was, to me, it was like he showed me the tool, showed me how to turn the thing and pull the thing out, and voila, I could put it back
Yeah.
in. And from that point on, I'd know how to do it. Right. And that's what he was for me. And so to me, and I know this sounds silly, but that's what you are to me,
Hmm.
because you were able to show me how to get the damn spark plug out of the lawnmower. So how to get the podcast out of my mind and onto the friggin' screen, right? So I've been kind of in limbo a little bit with, luckily right now, I still have the portal of all of his stuff. But the thing that happening has really lit a fire in me, because one of his goals in life was to reach so many people and help them,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
And so when he passed away, there were several people in our little cohort of August that we came together, and then he had an alumni group of people that had been through his programs. They reached out to us and said, hey, we know you're hurting, we know, you're kind of lost and don't know what to do. Come into our group and we'll help you. And everybody was talking about how amazing this man was and how he helped them and everything. So I even made a post. I said, I bet James had no idea the amount of impact he had had on people. And if he had been like me, because he's the one who told me about the damn billboard,
Yeah.
if he had been like me and didn't even have the billboard out, I would not have had the opportunity to learn from him. Even the
Yeah.
short amount of time I learned was amazing. And so it made me want to have my billboard even more, so
Oh.
that, because one of my things has always been, and I don't want to cry, but it's always been that I didn't want to die without having made a big enough difference in the world. And so it was kind of like, since he went so quickly, even though he did make a huge impact, I don't know that he knew. And so I want to have that impact, but I want to rally the people and learn from them, so that not only do I make an impact, but I can feel and see the impact that I've made, even if there's people that I never know, because it's a ripple effect. You help one, they help somebody else, help
Yeah.
somebody else, help somebody else.
Yeah, and it's so, like, simple too. Like, do you remember, like, even Joyce, you went on a live with Joyce in the group
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram. It was on during the Go Live
Yeah.
challenge. And I don't know if you noticed, she said something about it, saying like that was the moment like the whole challenge, that was the moment. She put in her survey, the moment that changed everything for her was when she went on the live. Like, you don't even, like, there's so many little moments of these ripples that we do, that we
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what it is.
Right.
And
Well,
I
she did
just,
reach out to me and tell
oh,
me how
good.
much it meant to her, me getting on there, and how much it helped her. And
Yeah.
and it was like, wow, I had no idea. Yeah.
And that's the point. It's like we don't know, like, all these things. And you're right. Like, I love that visual of the billboard. We should probably put a sign on our thing and, like, literally, like if there is no billboard, then you can't do it, you know? And so yeah, I feel you on that. And I think that's such a beautiful way for you to remember him and, honor him in that way too, because, he didn't know and then ran out of time, like, it's like
Yeah.
we all get to that point where that eventually that happens. And so what if we could just live that way, where we know
Right.
we don't know how much time is left, and we might as well just do what we can while we're here.
Right. So it's definitely made a difference in my business and what I'm doing and how I'm showing up. And he was already making a difference before he passed.
Yeah.
And then these people in this alumni group, they've already made a difference in reaching out and talking and helping us all to digest, what's happened. And if we,
Sure.
as we can still go through the portal. We don't know if it's paid for the month or if it's paid for the year or whatever. So it may just disappear. And
Hmm.
so one of the gentlemen that's techie, he even went in and was able to collect all the information and share it with us. So it's not going to disappear. We have it in a file now. So I can continue to learn from him. But it's like such a I know things always happen the way they're supposed to. Like the
Mhm.
way I met him and him being able to help me. And then some of the people I've met in this group, if he hadn't passed, now this is a horrible thing to say, but if he hadn't passed, I probably wouldn't even be aware of these people,
Mhm.
until I became an alumni and was put in the group. But that doesn't mean you interact with them very much. So
Yeah.
they're even starting a mastermind now so that we can all go into a weekly mastermind to help each other.
Hmm.
And it's amazing. He created a group of people that are so like-minded that they're willing to help. And I really feel like with your people that have been in the challenges that I've been in and everything, they're that way too. It's like they
Mhm.
they reach out, because I've been on a couple of the different podcasters, and had interviews with them, and I've had some on mine. And it's just like we collaborate, and so it's a beautiful thing that you've created. Um, and so I want to ask you, with this theme of what I've just talked about, what is it that you want to be remembered for or known for when you are no longer with us?
Mm. It's funny because I've like asked myself this question before. And I'll just start talking and see what comes.
Okay.
And like before, I would have said kind of what you were saying, which is I don't want to seem like I'm stealing your thing.
No, no, that's fine.
But I'm so I'm gonna say it out loud and see if something else comes. But like I just like you talked about my staffing company earlier, and if I was doing the same thing, it was like so hard for me to see like it was like almost like this pain in people's eyes that just couldn't get past their story. Like they had this like story in their head of who they were and what they were meant to do. And that was all. They just couldn't go past it. And there was only so much I could do, as the owner of that business to be able to help them do it. With Do the Thing, it's different. I feel like I can like get at people in a different way, and it's in a really simple way. And so I'm able to see the change so much quicker than I've ever been able to see. And I think with every person I help and with every challenge I run and with everything that I do, even for myself, as I expand my comfort zone, I'm learning more and more, and it's evolving and it's getting better and it's fine tuning and it's tweaking. And so, I mean, at the end of it, like when I want to remembered for is just that legacy of just like impact, and being able to like, wow, you know, it's not even about me, it's about the community. It's like, wow, that because this thing that I like did, it's like it changed the way that I do life. And I don't, it goes back to that. I talk about this with Gregory Benedict. He's one of the experts on Do the Thing challenges. He talks about, um, there's a quote from Bronnie Ware, who had interviewed all the people on their deathbed. And it was like, I want to do the things that like, I'm totally botching the quote, but like it's like I want to be remembered for the things that I like did that were coming from me, not with not with the things that others expected of me. And I
Right.
want people like I want that for me, but which I'm doing that. I'm living that now. I didn't live that for so long. I want other people to be able to live with that. Like I'm not doing things to please people. I'm not doing things out of comparison. I don't have self-doubt. Like I'm able, or at least able to push past all that stuff and doing the things they want to do. So I guess that's a long answer to your question, but I want to be remembered for really helping people not feel like anything stopped them, you know? And I don't even want to say like getting rid of fear, because we all have fear,
Yeah,
it's
fear
just
is
not
healthy.
letting, yeah, like not letting anything stop you and being able to just push through it anyway.
All right. Well, I can say, from having been part of your group for a bit, I would say we all feel that way. That, like I said, you were the one that helped me to know how to get the things in my head that I wanted to do out into the world. And so I think for me, not that you're going anywhere, but for me, it's like, I would say that you have been instrumental in creating an atmosphere where people can um, do things, try things, fail, get back up, try again, and that we all rally and help each other. And so to me, that's profound, because a lot of people teach where you fall down, you fail, and it's like, well, what the hell did you do? And even like if you're in your challenge and you don't show up for the challenge for a little bit, you don't chastise people, you don't do anything, and people can still contribute at their own pace. You do stretch them, but you don't give them a hard time for not competing and not doing what you had asked them to do. And to me, that's a really wonderful thing.
Thank you. I love that you say that, because like a lot of people ask me, especially as I'm working on making Do the Thing a business, they're like, what are you, a coach or a mentor? And I'm like, I'm not. Like, it's like literally I just created this space for people to be able to like have this magic and the synergy together, so they're able to do it. And so I still don't know what that is, but maybe a facilitator or something. But it's really about the community and the synergy of everyone in the group. That's where the magic is, And so
Well, see,
anyway,
you need to change it. You're a Do the Thing coach.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So instead of just a coach, it's a Do the Thing coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Because that's what you do. Because all the things that you do are coaching.
Yeah.
Whether you recognize that or not, but it is.
Yeah.
Because you're helping with mindset, you're helping with stretching goals, you're helping with even making the goals. And I think the thing that's really cool too is that sometimes we don't even know what we need, and suddenly your challenge pops up. Well, hell, how did she know? That's what I needed, So so that's really good. And I did want to ask, one of the things that speaking of the podcast and everything, one of the things that would be really beneficial to me as like a caveat from your Do the Thing podcast challenge to the next part, whether that's even doable or not, is how to get more followers, how to monetize, how to do. So it's like you got us started. Now there's a gap between that and here, and bridging that gap.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. That one in a book.
Yes, that in a book. Yeah. And they may work together,
Totally. Yeah. I know Adam's still going to come on, and the founder of Callcast, and he's going to do something. And then we actually have another person where we scheduled it. I just haven't put it in the group yet. It's a few weeks from now, and he's going to talk to us about it. But yeah, maybe coming up with either a challenge around it or like one of those intensives, would be good too.
Yeah. So that's really good.
I love that feedback. That's great. It's really helpful, especially right now, since I'm in this place of turning it into a business too, and being able to help people,
Yeah. So from now on, you'll never think about all this stuff again without thinking about that damn spark plug, right?
Yeah. Spark plug and the billboard. I'm going to see
that's
both
right.
of those.
The spark plug and the billboard. Yeah. So we are a little past time because this was so wonderful. But I really, really appreciate you being here today, and being so open, and such a joy, and sharing some of your things that you struggle with, that a lot of people struggle with too. And so I implore everybody that's watching or listening that to check Stacey out on Facebook for her Do the Thing. And I'll get all the links and stuff from you to put in the description. So when you see this or listen to this, there'll be some links that you can go and check it out, because it'll be so worth your time. And like I said, sometimes we don't even know that this is a challenge we need until it pops up. And then it's like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. So I'm very grateful, and I'll be sharing this on my YouTube channel as well. So whether you're on the podcast or you're on YouTube, just make sure you do whatever it is that you need to do, like, share, comment, all the things to help this grow, because that's my whole point, is to help this grow so that all the people that I've interviewed can have a bigger audience for what they have to say. Not so much me, but so they can have so much more say and show the world who they are.
The billboard.
That's it. That's right. You'll help me build my billboard.
Well, I have to tell you, this has been so much fun. This is the first interview I've done all summer. So I kind of took a break from everything over the summer because I was focused on the challenges. And it just reminds me how just much I love doing this. And so thanks for getting me to get started again. And having you in the community is just absolutely unbelievable. And I know you're such a huge part in helping other people also do the thing, because they're getting to see you do it, which is just the number one thing that really gets people to move, is by seeing everyone else, be able to do the things they want also.
Yeah. And before we go, I want to tell everybody one of the things that right after we created our podcast and started doing interviews, I reached out, said, well, when can I interview you? She said, well, when you've got 20 episodes, then we'll talk. And it was like, okay. So I'm counting down. All right, this interview. And finally I got 20. It was like, as soon as I got 20 on there, I messaged her, okay, 20 on the books. Now we're going to do your interview.
And that's what's so cool. That's why I did it. Because I normally would have probably waited another month, before I started again. And because you like reached the goal that you wanted, I was like, yeah, I have to do it now. And it was great because it's good for me too, because it got me to be on here with you. So I loved it. And that's
Well,
what
good.
shows you guys, like when you have a goal and then you have something to look forward to, you reach it, and then it's exciting to be able to do that, just to get yourself to have something in mind.
Yes. Yes. It has been life-changing, just meeting you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vickie.